Alright, so here we are with the Showdown at Retribution starter set. I did take the plastic off because I wanted to take a look at the actual books material in here last night. So we'll cover that in a little bit, but for right now, let's see what we got. Like all Warcraft releases, very nice slipcover. I'm definitely going to be saving this. I think this will be very useful for demos. Nice way to catch people's attention. Alright. For some reason, that is very, very satisfying to do. Alright, and here we have the entire contents. We'll start out with 2 action and adventure card decks instead of just the one that was in Red Oak. This will make it easier for people to split the contents of the box. We have 8 Wild West Exodus dice, 4 per. We'll see how that ends. This will probably, there's probably a good amount for the contents here, but most players will probably want to pick up another set. We have plenty of bases here, all kinds of bases. Wow, those are some hefty oval bases right there. Should be interesting to play with. And then, of course, the regular round ones. Set of condition markers. Looks like this is just the generic dystopian age ones. The packaging on this one has been taken off because, like I said, I flipped through the rulebook and the little campaign guide and everything last night. So we can get rid of that. Yeah, just standard cardboard tokens. You can see. And here we get 2 sheets, 1 for each player. Right. Now the universal war cradle measuring tool and template. Right. There is one thing that I've noticed with the template here in particular. This is probably only going to apply to a small number of people who live in hotter climates, but this will, because of this particular type of plastic and because a lot of it is very hollow, this will warp in hotter temperatures. So definitely don't leave this in your car in the summertime. Ask me how I know. Right. We have new flight stands for everything. Now the stuff people are most interested in, all of the sprues. And I know the gunfight at Red Oak was entirely plastic as well, but all of those were holdovers from the Outlaw days. So these are completely brand new plastic sprues for Wild West Exodus. Oh, yeah, now you can see a lot of the detail that's in here. So it looks like this is going to be, what we're looking at now is the Union size. There's some bits for Carl Fredrickson and Tesla. And over here, we have the Enlightened side. So it looks like this will cover. This is basically all of the named characters for the Enlightened. Right. And here we have the brand new Iron Horse / Iron Eagle model in plastic. And it looks like they even have some of the different weapon options available for them, which is very nice. Then moving over, looks like these look to be like Iron Horse Rider sprues. So, yeah, I'm not sure if it's coming through very well on the screen, but the detail on these honestly looks to me better than even the details on the plastic Dystopian War Sprues. Let's look at some more Enlightened here. Now it's more Union, so it looks like this sprue here has a lot of the bits for the various Tesla bots. So yeah, lots of Tesla bot bits. Over here on the other side, we have a monocav. Or a cav strider, depending on how you want to build it. Maybe we flip it over here. You can see the faces for these new Enlightened units. Okay. So yeah, you definitely see a lot of the distinct facial features. And again, more Iron Horse / Iron Eagle components. And yeah, these are just so all the ones that are left in here are just repeats of all of the other sprues that we've seen so far. Let's take a look at the actual books, since I already peeked at those. So here is our quick start guide. This will contain all of your actual assembly instructions for everything. And this also has the new unit cards. As of this recording, they are currently not available on the Wild West Exodus website. I'm assuming that's going to change probably over the weekend, once this officially releases for everyone. But here's what we can expect to see for 3rd edition. They'll take a lot less ink to print at home, which is very, very nice. If you also notice, there's a points reduction for everything. The card information layout got a bit of a rework, much easier to print. If you want to take a look at all of the new things that these guys can do, including, let's see, where is it? That's going to take, that one there is going to take some getting used to, but we'll see how it turns out. And over here we have the Showdown at Retribution campaign book. This is a simple set of adventures designed to get two completely new players used to the game and learn how all the different rules and mechanics work. So they go over everything from just basic movement and actions to shooting to apparently a bar fight and fortune, and finally ending with a complete game, which actually looks somewhat interesting to try out. And then, of course, we have our new rulebook. A lot of the artwork from the previous edition got replaced with newer pictures, which is always nice. From my understanding, there should be a digital rulebook released, I think, around December. I'm not entirely sure on that specifically. Don't hold me to it. Yeah, there was all that. And then everything from here back is lore. This is all of the background for all of the different factions. It looks like, I'll have to go through and completely read all this, but it looks like it's the exact same information and lore from the last edition's rulebook, which I would like to see something different, things expanded on a bit more, instead of just taking everything from the last book and copying and pasting it over. All right, so I am going to take all of these sprues, get them all assembled, show off what they look like when they're ready, and let you know about any particular tips that I figured out or lessons that I learned while getting Showdown at Retribution ready to go. Okay, so after a few days of assembly and fiddling and going back and forth on a couple of things, here is almost all of the Union side of the Showdown at Retribution box assembled. I'll get to that here in just a second. Overall, it was fairly easy to get everything assembled. There are a few specific points that you should really consider. Go ahead and get the easy stuff out of the way. The two named characters here, Carl Fredrickson and the Union Belle Alana. Super easy to assemble, easy to put together, no complications with them at all. So if you want a couple of easy, quick ones when you're starting out, start out with those two. Now we're going to move on to the Tesla bots. For these, I built 4 long range, 4 ranged and 5 melee options to use for demos. If you notice, I did leave the shields off simply because I want to paint those separately and then reattach them later on. Leaving the shields on during assembly will probably give you some trouble while you're painting. You may end up having to do some extra cleanup, which I wanted to avoid, so I left those off. The biggest issue that I had assembling these is the fact that the joints for all of the limbs are ball joints. Very nice if you want to do some extra posing. If you are going to assemble these and then base them separately, like I've done here, that may cause some problems. If you are going to go that route, I recommend getting your base material down first, and then use super glue to attach the legs down where you want them to be, and then build up from there. I thought about that as I was assembling the last one. What I ended up doing was just assembling them all separately, putting the sand on the bases and then gluing them on. So some of them are standing a little bit wonky, which is fine. I can still make it work, but if you want to make your lives a little bit easier, I recommend going that route. Now, moving on, we come up to the Iron Eagles. When you're going to assemble these, I recommend taking a look at the assembly instructions on the website. There are a couple of steps missing from the printed instructions. I've already let myself and one other war host have already let Warcrunner know about that issue. They've corrected it in the digital edition. Yeah, other than that, these were pretty quick to put together. One note is you'll see that these ones do not have the back on them. Those I left off to paint separately because I am also going to be painting the riders separately as well. For the same reason, I did not want to do the shields on the melee Tesla bots. I want to make sure that I can get these well enough and don't end up with a lot of additional cleanup to do on the bikes themselves. Other than that, I think the biggest issue I had in assembling these guys was the weapon placement, the guns here, and lining them up with the plates. Another issue is that I ran into is making sure you get the handlebars put in properly so they'll line up with your Tesla bots. Again, these ones also have the ball joints for all of their limbs, so that may be a bit tricky to get lined up properly. If you're gonna go the same route I have with painting the riders separately, I'd probably recommend getting a tiny amount of blue tack and putting them onto the hands themselves on the handlebars, and then using that as a guide to make sure everything's sort of in place the right way. And that's something I wish I had thought of while I was assembling all of this, but that's why I did this, so you guys can avoid making the same mistakes that I have. Fortunately, this will still be pretty easy to recover. Another thing you'll note is until you actually glue these guys to their bases, they spin. They're rather free floating. So for these two here, I've done one going straight up and one sort of curved a little bit. So it gives me a tiny bit of extra play and just making them a bit more unique. In that case, we have one person left to talk about, and let's see if he's actually ready now. By far the most taxing model to assemble in the entire box is Tesla here. Some people may have had an easier time with him than I did. I sort of shot myself in the foot by deciding that I was going to put the basing material on the base first for him and then try to attach it. And the three attachment points for the model, these arcs of electricity, do not like to sit on uneven surfaces like sand very well. So I ended up having to scrap that and then try to get him onto a plain base here, and then just add the sand later on. Honestly, assembling everything else for the model, totally fine, no problems whatsoever. These three little electrical bits, trying to get them lined up properly and then aligned so they'll not only will they be on the base, but they'll be there to support Tesla, was an absolute pain. If you're looking to sort of save it, depending on how you like to work through assembling models like these, either get Tesla knocked out first just so everything else will be much easier, or just save the most obnoxious and painful and difficult for last. That was it. That's it for the Union side. Now we'll see how the Enlightened turned out. And here we are with the Enlightened half of the Showdown at Retribution box. As you can see, not entirely done with assembly. There's a good reason for that. All of my Enlightened so far have industrial themed bases on them. As you can see with Emily and Smash and Grab here, they are on some of the plastic base toppers that I picked up a while back. So that's fine. The problem with the rest of them is they are on completely different style bases. So on these two here, and base toppers for these bases don't exist. I don't think War Cradle has any plans to make any. If they do, it will be far in the future. So I will need something to use now. Right now, I'm currently waiting on some additional material to do the bases in the same industrial theme that I have a lot of my other ones done. So once I have that, I can finish getting these assembled and primed and ready to go. Overall, assembly for these guys was so much easier than the Union. It was ridiculous. Biggest issue I had was, again, because of the restrictions I had for basing. The Strider Cav didn't come out quite the way I was hoping. Once I have some more actual basing material, I'll be able to adjust those and play with them a little bit more. Oh, it looks like I skipped one, so go talk about the Enlightened Monocav real quick. One note: if you are following the build instructions from the box, then one component is not going to be shown to install. It's going to be this guy here. He doesn't show up on the actual instructions. This is a separate component. I already have told War Cradle about it. They know it's updated on the digital edition. So right now, I'd recommend following that rather than the physical one you have in the starter set. Most because that also shows you a picture of the fully assembled models and what they should look like once you're done. So Gustav here, he's in 3 separate pieces. His chair assembly, as well as upper torso and his atomic blender bus in my gigantic hands. And I kept these ones separate just because the way that this is going to go, trying to get to his face and everything there with this great big gun in the way would have been too much of a pain. So kept those separate. For the riders, these riders were a lot easier to assemble because they don't have the same ball joints that the Union riders do. So getting them assembled and in the right position was a lot easier. Smash and Grab, super easy to assemble, no problems there. Emily, again, super easy to assemble, not an issue. All right, so now that we have our official unboxing done and out of the way, I am going to be doing a series of painting tutorials to show how to show a quick and effective way to get this box to a fully ready to play state. Obviously, I'm going to be starting with the Union half as I wait for the Enlightened base and waiting for the basing bits for the Enlightened to show up. So yeah, stay tuned in the next couple of days, and we will get that video series started. Until then, take care, everyone, and happy wargaming.